Well, I'm back again with another episode of the Earning Freedom Mastermind Straight A Guide program. I hope I'm not boring you guys with this information. I'm just trying to do the best that I can, giving you as much information and content that you can use to begin building a life of success and prosperity, even if you're locked inside of a segregated housing unit cell right now. Even if you're locked inside of a high security penitentiary and you want to go to lower security, or better yet, get out. Even if you're inside of a jail or some school for at-risk youth, regardless of where you are, you have the power within to start making decisions that will build a better life. I know that you guys have heard already who I am. I mean, you've been going through this course for a few episodes right now, and I continue sharing my own story as well as sharing stories of other people that I've met out here. And they all have one theme in common. It's the decisions that we make while we're living in struggle that help us move beyond struggle. And in the first lesson of this whole entire program, I talk about how essential it is to articulate the values by which you profess to live. You got to define it, man. You got to say who you are and what you are, because if you don't, you can be absolutely sure that this system will be defining who and what you are. I still remember, times that I was getting transferred from one prison to another, and as I'd move into a new institution and you hobble all in there, you're shackled up, and a guard's looking at the paperwork, and he's looking at me, and he's looking at the paperwork, and he's saying, God, this guy's been in jail for 25 years or 20 years or whatever. And then I would say, you don't look like you've been in that long. The reality is that was always part of the plan for me. It's the plan that I want for everybody that I'm trying to connect with, is that you get out, you're going to get out of that system and that environment at some point, and I'm going to do everything within my power to help advance those release dates for people on a systemic level. But I need your help. I need you to do what you can to make sure that other people see you as all that you can possibly be. Right? And not just with happy talk, not just with words about what you're going to be, but truly be something more. If we can achieve that together, I know that I'm going to achieve my goal, which is persuading legislators to change the laws, persuading employers to open employment opportunities, creditors to open credit vehicles. And you're going to do what you need to do, which is make sure that you get out at the soonest possible time and get back into society functioning, making things happen. And that's what everybody that I try and present on these programs do, is they make things happen. Now, I say it all begins with this concept of identifying your values, and I told you what my values were in the initial one. I was thinking about my avatars. I was thinking about the people I'm going to meet in the future. What would they want? Well, they would want me to focus on educating myself. They would want me to focus on contributing to society, and they would want me to focus on building a support network. And I truly believe that if I did that, that was going to move the needle for me. That was going to advance me along the path. But I had to make it self-evident. So I'm not asking, hey, did you think I did focus on educating? Or hey, did you see what I did? No, you got to make it happen. So no, it's beyond refute, okay? And so for me, how was I going to do that? It was education was going to be earn university degrees. Contribution to society was going to be publish books. Build a support system was going to find people that I didn't know and persuade them to believe in me. Those 10 people. So those were my goals, right? University degree, publishing books, and finding 10 people. That was going to make it self-evident that I truly was committed to those values. And your task is to do the same thing. That's the prerequisite. If you've done that, that's when you can embark on this Straight A Guide program. And the Straight A Guide program, I'd love to say, I came up with this on my own, but that's not realistic. The reality is I learned from people who were a lot smarter than I am. Masterminds who went through all types of challenges and came back strong. And because I watched and observed and learned from them, I was able to just shift it over into a package that I could sell, or that I could tell other people, hey, this is what worked for me. I think I wrote about in the lesson plan about how I was interviewed by a mentor who came to see me inside of a prison. I was at the end of my journey, and he was asking me, how am I going to earn a living when I get out? What am I going to do? And I told him I really want to help people achieve optimal performance. I really want to share the strategies that I learned from other people. And he suggested to me, gave me really good advice. I'm always listening from people who are successful. And he told me, he said, you need to come up with a brand, with something that you can put into a package so that people will buy that package from you. And that's what really got me thinking about the Straight A Guide. It's not any rocket science. It's not anything that I'm sure a lot of you guys don't know. You guys know what it takes to be successful, but there's a big difference between knowing what it takes to be successful and actually doing what it takes to be successful. Everybody knows, right? I mean, everybody knows that they can make, what does it take to make things happen, but it's another thing to do it. Sometimes when I'm out, teaching in the corporate sector, I tell people, you could take a box of transistors, right? And capacitors and electronic goods and whatever, memory boards and whatever, and put it in a package in front of me. And I can look at it for the next 3 years. And in 3 years, you're still going to have nothing but a box filled with transistors and capacitors and electronic devices and wires and soldering guns, because I wouldn't know what to do with it. But I could put that in front of a computer engineer or somebody like Bill Gates, and in 5 years, you're going to have a company like Microsoft. The reality is, I don't know how to do some things, but I do know what worked for me. And that's what I want to share with you. It's to overcome struggle, to become successful. You got to identify your values. You got to set clear goals. And then you got to embark upon this Straight A Guide program. That's the pathway that I know. Because I know it worked not only for me, but it's worked for thousands of people that I have taught and worked with, tens of thousands of people. And I know it can work for you. But it all begins with attitude. It all begins with helping you embrace this concept that you have the power within to change your life. You heard in an earlier episode where I interviewed Weldon Long, and he was telling the very moving story about what the last words his father told him before his father passed away. He said, "Son, you're still alive, and you have the power to change." And Weldon was discouraged on one level because he didn't make the change early enough for his father to see what a monumental success he could become, even though he'd served 3 terms in prison and was a drug addict. He could turn his life around, and he did it, right? But he had the right attitude. What's the right attitude? Well, in the Straight A Guide, I say the right attitude is when you make 100% commitment to success. Not as I define success, but as you define success. And you define success how? With your values and with your goals. If you focus on success, your values, and your goals, then nobody else is responsible for it but you. That's what was important for me. Nobody was going to be responsible for my success but me. I could sow seeds, but if I sow seeds, I got to take the next step and nurture those seeds and put those seeds. I used to use sometimes when I speak in front of a group, and if I ever have the opportunity to speak before you, you may hear me say this, but I say, when you're planting a seed, is that enough? Can you just plant a seed and expect that it's going to blossom and provide fruit? No, you got to do more. And I generally like to ask a question. What do you have to do when you plant a seed if you want it to bear fruit? Do you just plant a seed and go away? Well, maybe if you want to have weeds, but if you want to build a garden that bears fruit for the rest of your life, what do you have to do? Let me see if I can be quiet for a second and a half, just to give you a thought. I'm challenging you. What else do you have to do? Now, when I ask that question in an audience, I always get the right answer. Eventually, somebody's going to say, "Oh, you have to water it. You have to fertilize it. Fertilize it." That always brings me to this question. Well, what's fertilizer? When you distill that down to the basics, what is fertilizer? Well, I don't want to use a bad word here because I know you guys don't use profanity in there. And I don't want to mess up my sales. I like to be able to say, hey, I don't have any profanity in my stuff, so when I'm trying to sell this product. So what is fertilizer? So I'll use a nicer term. It's manure. I know what manure is, right? Fertilizer a lot of times is manure. So use another term for manure. You use it. But I'll tell you, that seed, it's got to go through a lot of manure before it grows up. And just as a seed has to grow through manure, you too have to go through a lot of manure before you are going to blossom and get all the benefits that you can create in your life. You've got to be willing to go through a lot of manure. And right now, sitting inside of a cell, it may feel like you're going through some real manure. Okay? But I got the good news for you. You stay on the straight A guide, you make a 100% commitment to success, and then you're going to have the right attitude. And the right attitude is what's going to make all the difference in the world. I am living, breathing proof that it worked for me. And these people that I profile on here every day, they are also living, breathing proof. I can tell you that tomorrow I'm going to introduce you to my friend Seth Ferranti. Seth served 25 or so years. I don't know how many years, but certainly multiple decades in prison. He went to prison just like I went to prison as a young man, but he made things happen. Found his way to go to school, found his way to become an author, found his way to get married inside of a prison visiting room, found his way to get deals out and have those deals generate revenues and money for him. He found his way to get out of prison, get off of supervised release early, build a career as a self-employed individual. I mean, all of that is a message that you're not just seeing it from me. You're seeing it from as many people as I can profile here, like Luis Rivera, who was on the last episode, guy who had life plus 140 years, but he made things happen. How? He had the right attitude. Now, I'm not saying the right attitude is the same for everybody. My position is you've got to reject this message that says the best way to serve time is to forget about the world outside and focus on the inside, on what you can, on your time in prison. That's what a lot of guys I used to hear say. Forget about the world outside, focus on time in prison. Luis had a different perception of that. I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you what's worked for me, what's worked for my avatars, what's worked for helped me get through prison at the soonest possible time. I didn't get out of jail a day early for all the work that I did, right? I did every day. I just didn't lose any good time. I got all my good time. I did 26 years on 45 years. That's the maximum that I could have served. But I didn't do a day longer because losing good time, right? Yeah, I did my time in the SHU. I got transferred numerous times. But there's nothing that I can say. There's nothing that I did in prison that I don't feel proud of, that I wouldn't have done again, right? I always did my time with an idea of preparing for success, and that's what governed every decision I made. So I focused on publishing books. I focused on building a strong support system. I focused on getting my university degree, and I did it with a 100% commitment to success. There was no deviation from what I was doing. If I had to go to the SHU for what I was doing because of whatever reasons that there are complications in prison, I did. But I went with the idea that says every decision I am making is advancing me along the path. As long as you are advancing along the path, then you're defining success in your life. You're not letting the world define you. Excuse me. If I had more skill set as a video editor, I'd be able to edit that out, but we're going to have to live with it. So this is what my message is for you today. Not only identify your values, not only identify your goals, I also really want to encourage you to be thinking about how your actions every single day reflect the level of commitment that you're making to success. And defend it. Own that, right? I knew a lot of dudes who said they could do life in prison, right? I was with a lot of guys who were willing to serve life in a SHU. And, I didn't find that to be consistent with what I would have wanted to do. But these guys said, that's cool. I'm comfortable spending the rest of my life in prison. And they made decisions accordingly. They owned it. What do you want? You define success for your life. In fact, at the end of this lesson, you're going to see I'll flash a question up on the screen that I'd love to have your answer for. And so it'll ask you to describe how your actions over the past week reflect your level of commitment to success. You don't got to remember it. It'll be on the screen at the end of this video. But I'm asking you to do that because that's what should govern your decisions. And you've got to, if you make a 100% commitment to success, well, that's what's going to help you reject the criminal lifestyle. That's what's going to help you choose your friends accordingly. That's what's going to help you enroll in the right classes that keep you moving and that keep you growing. That's what I learned from masterminds. Mandela, Viktor Frankl, Martin Luther King. Those are real men. Those are men who went through real struggle. I mean, Nelson Mandela, he was a huge inspiration to me when I was going through prison, because back then you didn't see a lot of people, under the old law, there weren't a lot of people that did more than, 20 years because they had parole. So when I went in, I knew I was going to do 26 calendar years, and I had to look for somebody I could learn from. And I learned from Nelson Mandela. I read his books and just thought, wow, what a powerful man to go through decades in prison and not have any anger or animosity inside of him, even though it was unjust. It was a great injustice for him to be in prison. All he wanted to do was help his people. But when he got out after 27 years, he just wanted to help more people have their best life. And that's what really inspired me to want to do more. And, Viktor Frankl just wanted to help people overcome struggle and find meaning in their life. And Martin Luther King, who was willing to pay any price, and he did pay the ultimate price with his death, just to try and restore civil rights. And we saw it in his speeches and in his movement of what he would do. And as I was going through prison, I looked to leaders like that and said, wow, those people are amazing, and they may not be alive, but I still looked at them as my mentors, my masterminds, my avatars, people I wanted to prove worthy of. And I said, I'm going to do it with a 100% commitment to success. That's the right attitude. 100% commitment to success as I define it. And I can define success in a lot of different areas. It's really important to recognize we have to define success, right? You can see it in your fitness, right? You see a lot of dudes in prison, they develop the most extraordinary physiques, right? I worked out with some guys who were just beasts on that pull-up bar, or runners who could run for days, or weightlifters who could really crush it on the weight pile, or people who were just awesome at physical calisthenics. And a lot of times dudes would come up to him and say, what does it take to get in shape like that? I want to get in shape like that, But they know that they can dispense the advice, they can talk about the guidance, but if the person doesn't have the right attitude, if he doesn't really commit, he's not going to get the results. You want the results, you got to follow the path. You got to walk the path. You can't be this guy that's just talking about stuff. You got to make things happen, and you got to see it way in advance. You got to see what you can become. If you continue to make the same decisions tomorrow that you made yesterday, you got to know that you're going to get the same result. I did not want the same result that I was living when I was locked in that shoe cell. I wanted something different. And I want something different for you. I want you to have something different. I want you to define success in as many different areas of your life as possible. I told you that I defined values when I started by my avatars and asking those questions, and that was education, contribution, support system. But as I evolved and as I became more mature in prison, those definitions of success, evolved as well. There was a time when I made a commitment to, I remember refining one is F's, right? There was family, a commitment to fitness, a commitment to finances, a commitment to friends. I had about 5 or 6 of them. But say it evolved, but I was always defining success, and then always setting very clear goals of what that success would look like. I still do it today. When I was in prison, fitness was really important to me for a lot of reasons. You're locked up. You got to stay fit, or at least I did for my values. But the commitment that I could make to fitness when I was locked up, is different now that I'm out here, right? I still stay fit. I still run a lot. I do swimming out here because, I couldn't do that when I was inside. And I used to have this dream that said, I get outside, I'm gonna run and I'm gonna swim, and that's going to be my fitness routine. But when I was in prison, and particularly at the end, I was exercising 4 to 5 hours every single day, 7 days a week. I got out of prison ripped. But now I've gained probably 7 pounds in 4 years since I've been out, maybe 7 pounds, maybe 8 pounds. I'm still focused on fitness though, because fitness is still part of my career. It's still part of my message. When I go speak in businesses or something like that, I know that if I'm physically fit, I get a different reaction than if I was not physically fit. And since I'm always selling myself, this is what work got me through prison, you can take this and use it in your life or in your business or in your career. I can show people how to do it, how I do it. And then I create programs around those. So fitness is still important for me, but it's not the same level that it was when I was in prison. And I'm telling you this because your values can change. Your goals will always be consistent with your values, but you've got to embark upon the Straight A Guide, which means you've got to make 100% commitment to success. I learned that from masterminds in prison. I learned it when I was out here. In fact, this morning I was running. Now I run, I was in prison. I used to run 20, 25 miles routinely every day. Out here, I like to run 10-mile days. This morning I'm running, but when I'm running, I also used to read a lot when I was in prison. Out here, I don't have time to read like I did, but reading is still really important. So when I'm running right now, I use this little app. This is my iPhone, right? And you see I'm timing how long I'm speaking because I know I only got about 30 minutes each time. But on these iPhones, in case you've been in jail a long time and you haven't seen it, you'll see I've got this little app there. It's called Audible, right? And I can click on Audible and I can see all these books that I'm reading, right? So when I'm running, I focus my runs. I'm listening to these books because I don't have time to sit and read anymore. In fact, the only time I can do something that is either talking on social calls, because the only time I use the phone is when I'm doing business, except when I'm running. So when I'm running, I can talk on the phone, or if I'm not talking on the phone, I'm listening to books. I'm listening to masterminds. I just recently finished the book of Elon Musk. If you have an opportunity to read the biography of Elon Musk, it's a phenomenal story, and you'll find that it's 100% commitment to what I'm trying to share here with the Straight A Guide. He was a guy that had values. He knew what he wanted to accomplish in life, okay? He set goals that would allow him to reach his values, to advance that concept. And he knows that it's always little incremental action steps, which I'll talk about in a later lesson. But I learned these strategies from masterminds, and then I try to incorporate them in my life. And that's what I try to share with you. Incorporate these strategies into your life. Don't do it just with your words. Do it with your actions, with your attitude, right? Make that commitment. Make it 7 days a week. Understand that every decision you make in prison has a direct relationship into your prospects for success. Not only through the prison journey, but also when you come out here and you're having to have these very difficult discussions with probation officers or a judge that you want to reduce your term of supervised release, or an employer that you want to hire you. Make sure that you can define how you have the right attitude. And I can assure you, I will always show you how I'm doing that in my life. And if you have an opportunity to reach out to me by just sending me an email invite or connecting with me, I will do my best to respond to any question, because I want you to know there's nothing I'm advising you to do that I didn't do when I was in prison and that I'm not still doing today. I still live in accordance with my values and my goals, and I make a 100% commitment to that. As reflected, that's why I can tell you I've got the right attitude to succeed. And I make things happen. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I make things happen on my last video, the day number 21, where we'll talk about authenticity. I'm going to show you pictures so that you know I'm not just a guy here talking that hasn't done it. I can tell you I went through the 26 years in prison, and I can tell you I came back to society strong, and I want you to come back as well. And that's the essence of this message. So that's what I had to share with you today. Tomorrow's video, I'm going to introduce you to my friend Seth Ferranti again. Amazing guy. He's out here crushing it right now in his own business. But, he was also inside of many shoe cells, did 25 years in prison, and became successful because he knew how the decisions that he made in prison had a direct relationship on his prospects for success upon release. And if you know that, I hope it's going to help you move forward with the right attitude. Set your values, clear goals, have the right attitude, and you too are going to build yourself a better life. You'll see there I got a question. You want to answer it? I'd love to hear from you. You'll share it with me, and I can publish it on my website, jobsandresourcesforfelons.com. I'll love to highlight you. Love to share your story of success. Thanks so much. Be back tomorrow with another message on this Earning Freedom Straight A Guide Mastermind program. Thank you.